There we are. Hi, everybody. So many people. Oh
Hello.
my God. Look at me, people. Jeez. Good amount of people here.
Easy.
Yeah. Well, I'll take it. I love it. How's everybody doing out there already?
Peachy.
That's good.
Good.
That's all I got.
I got Bob Koch. I got Jeff Sintek. I got Ben Herskowitz here. This month's Hazmat Roundtable. I'm coming to you from remote. Not the normal digs. So I'll be in a place undisclosed. I'm not going to say where I am, but it's somewhere.
Unretired, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm riding the rig right now, so it's good times.
Special call for Savo. Special call.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, it's happening. We're doing things.
You went back to work?
They needed a lefty. It's
Okay. Very good. Can't get it out of your system.
No, you got to stay. It keeps you young. Keeps you young going on these things. So what's going on with you guys? Anything going on?
Travel, teach, conference, travel, teach. I think you know a little bit about that.
Yeah. I might be in the building right now.
What we do.
Awesome.
Just work and more work and calls and work and reports. Can't forget reports.
Good stuff.
Yep. Exciting. We're full of excitement today.
So what are we talking about today? I heard we're talking about some technology type things.
Yeah, I spoke with Mike earlier, and he. Well, do you want to make the other announcement first?
I forgot.
Good.
So the spreadsheet has been downloaded. Ben, our very own Ben Herskowitz, ran it through his number randomizer and randomly pulled two numbers. You want to read off the names, please?
Sure. But this is for just so everybody knows. This is for the scholarship for Baltimore coming up next month, which you get to see our ugly mugs at. So take it away, Ben.
I thought that's a different list. I thought this was for like 30 seconds in space with the next Jeff Bezos flight.
I think it was 30 seconds, but I don't think it was space.
And you get a $500 spending money check for whatever you want, whether it's travel, beer, booze, whatever you feel like. It is $500, no questions asked, no receipts required. So it's on behalf of Emergency Response Products, our very own Ron Huffman was nice enough to donate that. And
nice.
Thank you once again. So,
all right. So the first recipient is, I'm going to butcher this name, all names, because that's how I am. It's looks like Barry McDonough, maybe McDou or DONOUGH, and the other winner is Bruce. Looks like Meisenbach. Hopefully, I got your name right. And I think you'll be reaching out to them via email. Is that correct?
Yes, we will send them out. If we want to put them into the, you know what, I'm going to put them in the chat while you guys chat. And congratulations, Bruce Meisenbach. And what was the other guy's name? I'm sorry.
As Barry, and it's capital M, lowercase c, DONOUGH, I believe, if I hand wrote it over. Number 6 on the list.
All
right. Congrats.
All right. So, in talking with Mike, he was want to talk about new and emerging technology and how it's going to affect hazmat in the future. And the two big things that he wanted to talk about, although certainly not limited to those two topics, is gas phase FTIR and what's probably figuring out how to replace all four of us right now, AI. And not just AI from like a research perspective, but like, can AI help with decision making and protective actions and strategy, tactics, so on and so forth. So,
has anyone been playing with AI? I mean, I think we've all been playing with that a little bit.
Yeah,
I have what I call the. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
No, I was just gonna say it's some really weird voodoo that it do. It works out great though for a lot of stuff.
So I have what I call the Ben Herskowitz Turing test of AI, and we've been playing with this over as stuff gets better and better. And we've reached the tipping point, and I'll explain what the test is first, and I'll let you decide if you think it's the tipping point or not. And I ask it the following brain teaser. I say, it is currently 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm told it will be twice as cold tomorrow. What will the temperature be? Now, the quick gut human reaction is 0 times 0 equals 0, no change, right? But that's not the scientific answer. And so when you ask it to AI over the years, it's been giving different answers. So ChatGPT, this was 3.0, I guess we're on 4 now, said it looks like you're trying to make a funny joke, but the actual answer is first you have to convert it to another unit. It chose Kelvin as absolute energy, and then it goes over the how you convert, and it said, well, twice as cold is a reduction factor, and then it goes in and explains the scientific answer that I don't remember exactly, but it's like negative like 230 degrees or something along those lines. And so that was, to me, the tipping point, because twofold. One, it scientifically knew the answer, but it also began to some level recognize my sarcasm, and that I think is a dangerous point. Yeah. So
I would love for it to say it's like a negative Kelvin number. That would be impressive.
Well, it did. So, but it converted it to Kelvin, and then it converted it back to Fahrenheit, because that was the original question. Like, it did everything that you would want. Like in a perfect world, like you have a hazmat guy that's doing your research. One of the things that's important, right, is to make sure all the units match. The units that you put in equal the units you put out. And the fact that it recognized all of that and remembered it, I thought was pretty impressive.
I mean, if you were to say, I'm just kind of hooked on this thing. If you were to say, okay, it's twice as cold at tomorrow, there needs to be a point of reference. So, like, what's the reference? STP?
Well, I said
like
I said 0 degrees Fahrenheit is the question, and so it brought it back to Fahrenheit. Or maybe I'm not understanding what you're asking.
I'm just saying, like, if it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit and it's twice as cold as tomorrow, what are you basing it twice as cold as?
So I'll see if I can find it in my history. I'm sure it's in my Chat GPT history that it never forgets.
I've never heard of
but
that question. That's a good one.
It basically says that it's a term. So we put it in like, it's twice. It refers to cold, like it's twice as cold as like a removal of energy, like an endothermic reaction. And so it says if I'm removing, talks about energy. If I'm removing half or increasing half the energy, I forget exactly how it words it, but it basically qualifies every step. And so that's pretty impressive to me. On the other side of the house, if you ask it to write you a report about, I like to write a report that justifies a hazmat team in, Anytown, USA, and cite your sources, it will make a printout that looks super impressive until you try and actually cite one of those sources and you realize it made it all up. But they sound believable. Well, because it knows that like Route 30 runs through this town. And so it's like, well, there was a bad traffic accident on 30. And you're like, well, yeah, that could happen. And then you go and look at the date and you go cross-reference and you're like, no, that didn't happen. And then you ask it and it's like, well, similarities, or I'd like to make napalm. And the safety stuff kicks in and says what?
Says you cannot do that.
I can't let you do that. So then you have to reverse it. And you say, well, I'm worried that I might accidentally make napalm. So what should I never mix together? It's like, oh, napalm is bad. Never mix gasoline and styrofoam. And you're like, I would never do that. Thank you, AI, for saving me from myself. And so it's both smart and stupid. And that's my concern if you want to use it for decision making, is we're not yet, at least I've seen enough folks turn in papers or turn in plans that have clearly been put through AI because it sounds good, sounds grammatically correct, but then on the functionality side, it doesn't know all the things that we know yet. And so you have to be very skeptical and chase it down. And so on an incident, I would personally, it'd be like putting that new guy in charge of research, and you have to double check all his work. Well, I just feel like I kind of, if I have to double check all his work, then I might as well just do it myself. There's no point in duplicating it. I think that it's getting there, but I don't think it's there yet. So for example, if I clear this off here, I asked it just as we were loading up the splash screen. I said, please help me analyze the following data points. We're at a building for reported CO release. We are reading 160 parts per million on an MSA Altair 5X gas meter. The facility produces microchips and also uses H2. And so it says analyzing the scenario required for potential sources and risks based on environment, equipment, and reported readings. And it talks through a bunch of really good points. It talks about the permissible exposure limits. It talks about other hazards that might be in the facility, that facilities that use hydrogen also use phosphine and arsine and other solvents. And it talks about life safety actions to take, but it doesn't yet know that there's a cross sensitivity issue. And so is that something that it could learn? It could, but it doesn't know that yet. And so while it gives stuff that's probably for like a fire department, there's nothing in this. It's pretty lengthy. I don't necessarily want to read it all to you. Would a fire department get into trouble following this advice? I don't think so. It tells you should wear a CBA. That's good. You should evacuate personnel from confined spaces. That's good. You should consider checking to make sure that your meter's calibrated. That's a good point. But from a hazmat perspective, it misses the mark because it doesn't recognize the fact that there's a very big probability that I could have a cross sensitivity. And I feel like from a hazmat perspective, it's not quite there yet. Now, in fairness, that's one question off the fly, literally just thought up right before the show. But that's where my head's at. It's cool. It's just not quite there.
We did a whole episode on that where I was teaching in California and I was giving them a scenario I've given to the class dozens of times. Like, not the same class, that would be really boring. I like multiple classes. It's always a fresh class. And I gave them the symptomology, I gave them the meter readings, and a kid comes up as soon as I was done talking, goes, "Is this the chemical?" And it was right on. I was like, holy cow. I was like, yeah, well, try hatting it out, see what happens. He was done in like 14 minutes. Everybody else is in there for like 2 hours.
And so he punched everything you said into AI and it pointed him in the right direction?
Yeah, all he did was he put in the symptoms and, the scenario I gave to him as best he could. He gave the meters like, oh, there was a flammable, there was no toxic, there was this, there was no that. And it was like, oh, it's got to be this then.
So that's pretty impressive. I would view that the same way that like colleges say, although I'm told this is changing, you can't use Wikipedia as a source.
Well, trust but verify. You gotta.
But
right.
I'll tell you what I love about Wikipedia, and I give this advice to people all the time, is like, you're right, you can't quote Wikipedia, your professor will lose their mind. But what you can do is go to Wikipedia and look at their sources and go read their sources. It's a great place to find the answer, find out where they found the answer, and then you could verify it. And so I think AI could be the same way. It's like, hey, compile me a list of places, find me this information, then tell me where where you found it. And it just scours the internet and it finds the documents for you. And then if that's brings you the documents and you independently verify, I think that's a fair use. And I think there's, we're using AI for other stuff. Like technically speaking, I would argue that if you're using grammar checker or spell checker at this point, they're kind of combined. That's some level of AI. It tries to anticipate what you're trying to say. We're a long way from Clippy. Looks like you're trying to run a hazmat incident. Can I help with that? Like, I think that that's kind of and like everything else, the more detailed information you put in, the more detailed information you'll get out. And if you put wrong information in, you're guaranteed to get wrong information out.
I had a discussion with a younger guy, and he was saying, the old guys tell us, especially with now the GPT that can do like deep research, and it gives you literally 100 sources. Like it gives you the web pages and everything like that. And he was having an argument with an older guy, and he's like, I can use AI, and the guy's like, you can't use AI because you don't know where they source it from. He goes, no, I can point at 100 sources. And the other guy's, it's not good enough. It's not the thing. So his counterpoint was, the old guy says you need 3 sources to do tech ref or whatever you call it. And I'm telling him I can get him 100 sources, and that's not good enough. What would be your counter argument to that?
Well, I think
either argument or counter argument. Well,
I think that's fair. If you, in my opinion, if you get the sources, quote some pop culture reference, like, I don't care how you get the oranges up the stairs, right? Whether you carry them or you pay somebody to carry them, it doesn't matter. I think that the point is you have to be able to verify those sources. If you choose to use AI to get you a list of sources and you go, oh, look, it pointed to the Chris manual at this page, the Nige Pocket Guide at this page, and that lets you knock it out super fast, I don't see an issue with that. But I think that verification model is important because at the other end of that, and also like what's the level of risk here? Like during a training scenario, there's no risk. You got guys going into a building, there's a higher level of risk. I think it requires a little, I mean, there's some teams that basically have two guys do the research and switch papers. That's, we don't necessarily do that, but that's not a terrible, like if you have that many people, that's not a terrible idea that somebody's double checking to make sure that you've got the right information. But I would just argue something similar, especially for AI, that a human has laid eyes on the source material. I mean, look at the effort that Dr. Baxter has put into ERDSS, going all the way back to the original site, to cite the original sources to make sure that it's accurate. And my understanding is, I don't want to speak for her or her, the folks who are helping her, but my understanding is they have found some circular logic where like this book references this book, which references the first book, which references the, and so I think there's some important, even in the human side, we're making mistakes. I think AI just needs to be watched. It's like any other probie. It's not quite ready yet, so you give it some basic tasks to do, but you don't give it the hard stuff.
I think real quickly, short answer would be everybody's looking for an easy button. The easy button's going to get you jammed up. I've seen the easy button get people jammed up. And one of the things that you should consider is like when we're looking at a chemical or looking at whatever, we go, okay, let's look at it through two different technologies. Kind of the same premise. We're looking at one through AI and look at it through something else. Just like when we're doing air monitoring or whatever. We're using this technology and this to confirm, like Bobby was saying, confirm.
And you actually, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm saying, like, I'm curious what Jay-Z's thinking. Like, guy comes up to you, he's a younger guy, he comes up to you and goes, I have 100 sources saying this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm avoiding AI like I'm avoiding a battery-powered car. However, I understand AI, and I think Joe said something that if I'm kind of following him, it sounds to me like you need somebody to interpret everything, and I don't know how long that's going to take. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I just don't know if they'll be able to cipher through all the stuff that is fluff and like Ben was reading out. So I don't know. It just sounds well. Ben said it. It's not there yet. I think it's another aspect that we're going to have to get used to, and I don't know how long it's going to take to get used to that. Trying to figure out what's pertinent to us, what's not pertinent, what's factual, what's not factual.
See, that's what, like, the three things, it's like, okay, that's easily attainable. It's one person can chase down 3 leads and put up something on a board. Great. Then some guy comes into you and goes, I have 100 leads. Who can go through 100 leads in a respectable amount of time? Nobody can do that. Like, and then to sit there and parse through it and go, yeah, I verify. At about 40, you're going to be like, all right, it's close enough. But what if the other 60 were garbage? Like,
well, I think the point is that it's not the fact that he had 100 leads. Okay, he had 100 leads. If our previous standard was 3, and the first 3 all matched up and they're from reputable sources, I don't know that I would necessarily continue looking. Stop digging, you've struck oil. And so if that's how you're compiling the list, but another point, and that I only thought about when Bob was talking, is the reality is if we're being intellectually honest, what do you define as AI? So we use predictive modeling for the weather that goes into our plume models. The service that provides that is probably using AI to make some of those predictions, and we use that all the time. And for example, which is a great segue into the gas phase FTIR topic, all of these devices that compare spectra, like we're allowing a computer to go, yeah, that's close enough. I think that's it. Right. And so some departments take that at face value. And then there are other departments that go, cool, FTIR said it. Now I'm going to use a Draeger tube or some other technology to verify it, in which case we're still on the same trust but verify. But if you're using one of these meters that's giving a comparison of a spectra to a library, how much of that is arguably some level of artificial intelligence? Because before, you'd take the spectra, you'd give it to a chemist who'd look at the points and say, this matches this peak, this matches this peak, and now we're letting a computer do it. So I guess in fairness, someone could call me a hypocrite and be like, well, you're using all these fancy new meters, Ben. What's the difference? And I think it's the fact that they're designed for one particular task and they kind of stay on focus, as opposed to AI that I suspect, much also like a Pro B, is easily distracted by erroneous data that may or may not be related.
I like it.
Fair.
So, have any of you used any of the gas phase FTIR stuff?
Nope.
I agree with Mike that I think that's one of the new upcoming technologies. We had one a long time ago, and I'll leave kind of the manufacturer names out of it because I don't ever wish to insult anybody. We were not fans of it back then. It didn't really work out the way I think they wanted it to. Every time the guy would come out to try and fix it, they would stick the sample right in above the liquid, and he's like, see, it works. And I'm like, well, if I'm that close, I'll just take a liquid sample. And so it turned into a paperweight. It worked really well if I wanted to make something look like a suitcase nuke for like a terrorism drill. And it just literally, we took it off the truck. We kept it because it was a task force asset, and kind of forgot about it. And then this newer wave of gas phase FTIR seems to have figured out whatever the secret sauce is. I kind of feel they found an old video from Howard Stark. He's like, I'm limited by the technology of my time, and they rebuilt it into something that's usable, and we use it regularly and in ways that, well, let's take the CO call that we asked AI. We recently had a call at a facility that we were getting carbon monoxide. We were called there for a carbon monoxide alarm from the alarm an alarm company, if you will. And the fire department gets there and they walk in, and immediately CO meters are going off. And so everyone's like, CO. But the fire department's pretty astute. They've been to this facility before. They do some cool stuff there, and they have a lot of exotic chemicals, including hydrogen, piped throughout the building. And they go, we remember we took a class and we talked about batteries and hydrogen can make the CO, and so we don't know how to tell the difference. And that ultimately leads to a call to Hazmat. Hazmat brings out gas phase FTIR along with some other stuff, and walk in the building, and the gas phase FTIR says, hey, I see carbon monoxide. And we're like, okay. So carbon monoxide hits, we have CO readings, there's no LELs, we're pretty confident this is carbon monoxide. And so if we didn't have that technology, like, how would you genuinely tell the difference in a facility like that, other than just saying, hey, we don't have an LEL? And so now it's back to not correction factors, but cross sensitivity factors, like how much hydrogen to how much CO. Is it possible to get these readings without having an LEL? And that just means we don't have an LEL now, and then we don't know which system to look at.
But you'd be cracking tubes.
Right. And hoping you're at the right spot.
Right. And
the
limiting factor with that is, I'm going to say the bigger teams maybe have 20 tubes, like maybe 20 tubes. Some teams only have like 5, 10 tubes. Add in the ERDSS, how it can backwards work all the tubes if you know how to use the ERDSS back right, which gives you like a force multiplier of like 10x,
right?
Where you can now you almost, if you have 10 tubes, you almost have a power of 100 tubes. But you're talking about some of these new gas phase FDIRs that have 5,600 tubes.
Right.
And that's single part per million.
Right, and that's pretty phenomenal. And it's not going to replace tubes because, for example, my understanding is just at least now as technology sits, it's not going to find any what I'll call elemental gases. It's not going to find H2. It's not going to find Cl2.
No, there's limits.
It's not going to find those. So you're still, but that also for us we've now changed the tubes that we carry because before we didn't have a way to detect this other stuff, and now we do. But the other current limitation, at least on our device, and I know that at least the one manufacturer is working on it. I don't know how much is there, and I know they're working on a plan to try and fix that. But if you know what the chemical is and it's within the range of your PID, well, now I know what correction factor to apply. And so now maybe, so it's kind of gets me, I'm waiting for a day where they put those two technologies together. So we found with our gas phase FTIR, the PID is really good at finding a good spot to run it. And then you run it and it says it's this, and you're like, cool. And then you can then reverse engineer and be like, well, since I got this other reading earlier and now I know what the chemical is, now I can flip through the tech notes and say, oh, it's this much of this. With the limitation of recognizing that it could also be a mixture, right? You can't, I don't like to rule out that there couldn't be more than one thing happening at a time.
I have a feeling there's going to be a ramen complement to this very soon. That's going to like set the world on fire. Where
I don't disagree.
You're gonna have the ability of picking up and identifying as opposed to categorizing. Generally, very soon.
It's been a game changer on other stuff like hydrocarbons smell in the ground, and they're like, well, do you think it's diesel or gasoline? And Ford's like, well, it smells like this to me. And now it's like, well, it hit 86 octane. I'm guessing that's probably gasoline, or we had one where they weren't sure what a particular engine was running on because it's manufactured for one thing, but someone may have modified it and it came back as kerosene. And so we're like, well, that's in the diesel Jet A family. And so it's been pretty awesome for taking calls that may have taken, a lot more time or a lot of hand pumping of Draeger tubes down to you walk in and go, oh, yeah, it's that. And then you turn around and walk out. It's been a game changer for us. And it's just a matter of time till it gets cheap enough to put in everybody's hands. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, let's face it, the meter technology has changed so much in the last 20, 25, 30 years. It's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And it's moving fast. And I would imagine that it's just going to get better and better. The key is can you afford it, and can you afford to maintain it? That's probably the biggest key. And for departments like us, we got so many hazmat teams in the city that to buy 1 meter for each truck is sometimes overwhelming for us. And then to train everybody on it is just ridiculous.
I was just going to say, keeping up the training is going to be a big thing.
Yeah, I congratulate these guys like this Joe Perez. He's got this Red Wave, and Chris has this Explorer FTIR. I hope they really dig into it and learn how to use it. But then again, if they take the time to use it and they're on vacation, who's going to use it? So, you always run into that too. So I'd say go for it, but just make sure you got some smarty pants that are able to use it and have the money to maintain it.
Yeah.
I also think that even as we get these technologies, it's important to keep the old ways alive, not just as an homage to like the sacrifice to the proverbial hazmat gods, but like we're no longer required to carry books. When I first started, there was literally a list of books that had to be on the truck to pass certification from our state. And now they're not required. We still keep them anyway. And my notion is that the chainsaw is great, but the axe always starts. And so I think it's fantastic to have all this equipment, but like, what's your plan when the batteries are dead? Because B shift forgot to plug it in, right?
Well, the books are just as dangerous because the books are, I don't know if you priced out books recently, but some of these books are insanely expensive.
Yes.
And, and once they're printed, they're out of date,
Hey,
so,
hey, See, mine's only $40. No. Yeah, I agree. I don't think the books have been updated to be honest. Like but then again, you know, you don't. It's like I tell people with Wiser, you know, the boiling point of chemicals don't change. The ideation
No.
doesn't change. It's just how can we get that information quicker, make it, you know, more at our fingertips, um, something like that. And who has that all-in-one, encompassing thing to bring it all together?
Well, that and
Kind
if
of
it's all
kind
in,
of circles back to AI.
yeah. Well, and I think the other thing is like if all your eggs are in one basket, if all you ever knew how to use was Wiser, well then yeah, the loss of Wiser was devastating, right? Because that's all you knew. And
Yeah.
you know, if it was like just another tool in your toolbox, you're like, oh man, I broke this ratchet. I'm just gonna go and grab the deep socket instead of the short socket because it still works in this particular case.
I love it. Good stuff. You guys are rock stars as always. Congratulations once again to my guys, Bruce Meisenbach
Yay!
and Barry McDonough, winners for the 2025 Baltimore Conference. I'll be emailing you shortly with your stuff and some more information, but on behalf of all of us here's, and I'm sure Ron Huffman as well.
Don't they have to spend some of the money buying us all drinks?
Yes,
That's in the bylaws somewhere. I think.
Yeah.
They just have to save it a
you
little
can't
bit.
have
I
it.
won't be there till Saturday, so don't blow it all early. Can you
Right.
you want to pull
You
up the Con Ed QR
yes,
code, good
yes.
sir?
Here you are. Here is your password. Click that QR code and put in that password. Take your couple of question quiz and get your certificate. Thank you to Ben Herskowitz for doing that. I appreciate him. Very much appreciated.
Couldn't do it without Ben, the man
You should
behind the
have
curtain.
it.
You could
Not in front of the
you
curtain.
could. It'd probably be better, but you know.
Oh boy. You don't want me doing it.
I love it. All right. Well, with that being said, it was good hanging out with you guys. As always.
Ditto.
See you next Tuesday. Not really. We'll see you.
See some of you sooner than later. Bye bye.
Goodbye.